Welcome to this week's edition of Inside the Human School, where we each share some background about how the Human School came to be, and then share some learning that we had this week around our compass points. As we engage our conversation, our first question, or our question this week for Inside the Human School, is where did the idea for the inquiry inventory come from? Does anybody remember?
Oh, I remember.
I do too.
I think what we wanted to do was we wanted to look to the adjacent possible areas outside of education, and areas that we were reading about, and inside education too. But we wanted to basically share the things that we're reading that are connected to education, and they could be focused on education or they could be sort of adjacent possibilities, but really just trying to demonstrate how the Human School compass can be connected to a whole host of areas, not only in education, but also outside. That was my recollection. How about you, Chad? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And we're all pretty avid readers. And I think it's been a part of our favorite conversations, has been things that have challenged our thinking or has helped us to explore and interrogate our ideas and question and challenge them. And, we've run, book studies for a long time, and we've shared a lot of different ways. And so it was just another way for us to take something that we're already doing and lend it into the experience. And there's been parts of that work, like, we've been, although I admit that Randy has done a much better job than I have done, of kind of categorizing and organizing those as well, as a way to build a catalog for people of these are the things that are informing our thoughts and things that are helping us to rethink it. And so again, everything we do has been to try to model what we think a form of action research is, but also how we learn and grow and develop these ideas. And this is just one of those other ways that we're doing that.
Yeah, I remember we talked about how we wanted to share our reading with people because it's such a huge part of what we do. And we talked about just using DIGO and listing them as reference points, but that we really liked the idea of illustrating in a bunch of different ways how the compass points connect with all of the reading and how we kind of see it everywhere at this point. So that was a very similar recollection that I have too. Plus, it's just interesting to see what the two of you are reading.
Well, I'd also say that we have branched off into really, while it's predominantly what we're reading, I know that Randy has noted podcasts or YouTube videos. It's really what are we consuming that's helping us to rethink or reframe our work. And so there's been weeks, Rachel, where I know you've posted like white papers, or so sometimes it's books, but it can more often than not be, this is a thing that I looked at this week and it made me pause or reconsider, or it added a layer to it.
So I'm going to take that as a cue to segue into what did we learn this
Good
week?
job.
So yesterday I actually crossed paths again with a video by somebody named Benjamin Zander, one of my favorite people who we hope will tag in social media posts so that we can get him on one of our podcasts. He and his wife wrote a book called The Art of Possibility. And in this video, he was talking about some of the ideas, and I just left it thinking, like, I always like to look through the leadership lens at these things. So the leader's role is really to awaken possibility in other people, and it kind of connects with our mind shift about everyone is a leader, but also the idea that leaders, that old top-down way of leading, doesn't really work anymore, that we create conditions in which we help people see the possibility. And as we work on this idea of transforming schools, how do we help people see the possibilities behind transforming schools? It's so easy to go into what he calls the downward spiral, where we're all like dark and gray and negative and doom and gloom and the future and all that stuff. But how do we like take that and help people see the possibilities in those things that might be perceived as negative or dark or not exactly things that we want to experience, but how do we help people see the possibility in that? So that was a connection I made this week.
Sorry, I could not click off mute there. So I'm reading Dan Pink's new book, The Power of Regret, and I think what's really interesting about it is in a way it inverts some of our mind shifts, which is this idea that we have to look back to better understand our future, which is kind of a traditional way of thinking about things. But yet, and again, I'm about halfway through. What I find intriguing about it is that his frame of reference is that we see regret as an incredibly negative emotion, as opposed to a informative emotion, right? And so this idea that we see it as an opportunity to learn and grow. And I think that's something worth exploring, maybe not so much through the human school structure or framework, but it's something that's probably really powerful for kids and for anyone who wants to be a powerful learner to tap into. And so much like Brene Brown's work, around shame, it's just powerful language and a new way to access what makes us more human. And so regret is a uniquely human character trait. And for someone to, I think, explore that rather deeply helps with the core mission of what does it mean to be more human and how do we design for a more human experience. So I've rather enjoyed it, and I'm getting to the part where he starts to make some suggestions on what to do with it. So that part I'm really excited for.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear more about that. So one of the things, you guys are going to laugh, but this is something that I'm still thinking about. So this started out as a joke. I had a conversation with someone about a question from a teacher where they wanted to know if they were allowed to wear shorts to work. And we had actually kind of a real conversation about what are the perceptions that are created based on what you wear, and sort of how. And so I keep thinking about this notion of like, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to feel seen, heard, and valued? But then also, it's kind of like the eye of the beholder thing, that how you're perceived, not just that you feel seen, heard, and valued, but how other people perceive you still plays into it. So we create this system where we allow teachers to dress more casually because that in reality doesn't have anything to do with their effectiveness in the classroom. However, the reality is that the social structure perceives that is a way to determine someone's seriousness as an employee or their intelligence level. We hear it all the time when we hear about accents or areas of study or jobs, right? We assume that certain people who talk a certain way or do a certain work have a certain level of intellect or a certain level of dedication, which is just not true at all. But that this notion of feeling seen, heard, and valued is so important, but there's almost this like outside observer piece, and it's that systemic part that still factors into so much of how we make decisions. And I'm a person who likes the all or nothing, right? And I'm trying really hard to learn the solution to everything isn't to just upend everything. But I wonder often about that sort of like silent observer. In English classes, we talk about like panopticon, that people will police themselves when left to their own devices, that you don't even have to police them to a certain point. So the same thing with, this notion of being human and trying to create more human systems. How much are we in our own way using this notion of like the outside observer, the panopticon, the system that has told us what is supposed to be true or not? So that's the thing that I keep thinking about. So like I said, it started out as a joke, but I keep thinking about it all week. So all right. Well, we wanted to say thank you so much for learning alongside us this week. Our goal here is to learn in public and share a little bit about how the Human School came to be and some of the connections that we're seeing to our compass points. If you want to learn more, please visit thehuman.school and our conversations page for additional resources, or join our conversation in our Facebook community, where we are committed to placing humanity at the center of all design. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.